Yeah, one would hope, but some of us run away screaming, you know. So, um, how are y'all this evening?
It's good.
Well, you can tell somebody's happy about that. Okay. So what do we know so far?
That karma is a law of cause and effect.
And what does that mean, a law of cause and effect?
That our actions bring about a result. And that result,
And so when we say it's a law, who made that law?
it just is a law. I guess.
Well, no, it's just the way things work, just
The way
like
things work.
the law of physics,
Right.
the law of gravity, the law of whatever. Now, so it's not that someone like greater than us created it. It's more an observation. It just is, and the Buddha, through his realizations, was able to observe it and then describe it to us. And of course, Shakyamuni Buddha is not the first Buddha, you know. Okay, so that's, the karma is the law of cause and effect. What does the word karma mean? Action. Exactly. Okay, so what do we know about karma? What are the 4 elements of karma? Somebody's gonna get this right one way.
Is it one that it's not immediate?
No, that's not one of them, but it's true.
Well, I find it very interesting that it's not immediate, and the common knowledge out there
No,
of
they-
general people,
it's
they
not
think it's
knowledge.
immediate. No,
It's-
no,
The
people,
common assumption is.
assumption,
Yeah.
yeah. People just assume it's immediate.
Well, we have whole expressions around that,
Well,
but what are
meaning-
the actual 4 elements?
It's definite.
It's definite. And so that gets at what you said, now you didn't say it. So what does definite mean?
If you do unskillful actions, you will get bad karma.
You'll get a bad result. Karma means action. So the action, the karma part, is when you're doing an action. When that gets placed on the mental continuum, it's a karmic seed. Look who it is. Hello, good to see you. So we use the word karma very loosely, partly because it's become part of our, you know, jargon in the world.
To me, it makes way more sense that it is takes eons.
Well, that's good, but we need to finish the 4 elements. So the fact that it is certain is that the action and the result are congruent. So if it's an unskillful action, it's going to be an unpleasant result. If it's a skillful action, it's going to be a pleasant result. So in that sense, it is certain or definite. Okay.
Never burns out.
It never goes to waste. So so that means that once a seed or potential is placed on the mind stream, is at that point it's no longer an action. It is the potential for the result of that action that's already been completed. What was I saying?
It's the potential for the result.
It doesn't go to waste, which means
Doesn't lose its power.
it will ripen, yeah, at some point, unless
Purify it.
you purify it, or if it's a seed of virtue, how can that be prevented from ripening? Anger can destroy your roots of virtue, so, or seeds of virtue, so to prevent it from ripening as a result. Okay, so we've got 2 of them, right?
It
Karma is
also
certain.
increases.
It increases,
Yeah.
so karma's dynamic, it's not static. So the results of an action can be great, you know, much greater than the action itself. What's a good analogy of that?
butterfly effect.
Yeah, that could be one. You can do it. I know it's in your brain somewhere.
Well, I mean, the analogy is that it's like a seed, and the seed grows into a tree. It has,
Yeah, so like a small acorn can become a large oak tree. You know, so can from a small action, the results from that action can be, you know, like for one thing, we know it has 3 results. Whether it's a complete action or an incomplete action.
Positive, negative, and different.
No, but that's part of it. But what are the 3 or results of an action? Okay, if an action is complete, what does that? What does
it ripens.
as what?
Throwing karma.
It's throwing karma or projecting karma. What does that mean?
It means it determines the condition of your rebirth.
Right. So it throws you into a new birth. You know, so it is the kind of, if it's a complete karma, it's the kind of action that when that seed is placed on the mind stream, that's the kind of seed that can be activated at the time of death. Okay. If it's not a complete action, what are the other ways karma ripens?
You get a result similar to the cause.
Yes, you get a result similar to the cause. What is that?
So, for example, if you kill someone, you could have a short life. or-
Yeah, so if you kill someone, you could have a short life. Or be killed, which might be a short life.
Mhm.
Okay. What's another way? Because there are 2 parts to the results similar to the cause. Well, it's called it just depends on your jargon.
Is it the result similar to the action, or is it environmental?
Well, environmental is a separate one.
Okay.
Environmental result, but there's also, so what is one of the, maybe what you're describing is the
Characteristic.
result similar to the cause, is that what you said? So if you kill someone, okay, let me get my jargon right, because now I've decided I'm confused.
Okay. Me too.
Oh, the mind. It's like my voice in my
Makes me feel better
mind.
about being confused.
Well, it's like the voice in my mind doesn't sound any older, but 20 years have gone by since I first heard this. So my retrieval abilities, not as good. Okay, the result similar to the cause is that you repeat the behavior. You know, so just like whatever, caused you to do it the first time, the seed can ripen is, the tendency to do it again and again and again and again and so on. So that's one way it increases. That the more we do something, the more likely we'll do it some more. And it just, like that. Okay, so it's the result similar to the experience of the cause is that if you killed someone, you will be killed. And then the environmental result. So what kind of thing can that be?
You could
Like
be
if you've killed someone,
born in a war.
you could be born in a war zone. Okay. So we said karma is definite or certain. Karma is doesn't go to waste. Karma increases. What's the other one?
Consistency.
Yeah, that's certain.
Specific.
Specific to what?
To the individual who,
You can experience the results if you didn't create the cause. So everything you experience, you created the cause for. Everything.
but it could have been in a previous
Oh.
life.
Yeah, most of what we experience is from a previous life. And it can be any number of lives, So, so complete karmic seeds, or seeds that were placed by a complete action can, are the type that are powerful enough to actually determine the type of rebirth we might have. The others are completing karmas, so they can, like the environment, like your habit energy, like, what may happen to you in that life. Not only that, if you kill someone, is there only one life that it's going to result in?
No?
What's the first life that you're going to, if it ripens,
The
what's the
hell realm.
first one? You'll go to a hell realm. Guess what? That's true of all the 10 non-virtues. So that's the first possibility, is that you go to a hell realm. So it's not, so when we're reborn in a life that we get killed in, that's just a completing karma by then. Some other seed was the throwing karma, because you've already been thrown to the hell realms. So the other aspects of that seed still have things to do to impact us. So, just so you know. Okay. Now, does that get you motivated? Okay, so now let's just try to settle our minds. And just try to bring your attention inward. You can first just check in with your body, see how it's doing. Settle the mind by following the sensation of the breath going in and out of the body. Now try to remember the reason that you came here this evening. And based on that reason, generate a positive intention to use your time well. whenever you're ready, just gently open your eyes. So what's the reason for learning about karma?
So I think that my understanding is for an understanding that we have power to influence our future through our actions.
So did anybody hear Anthony?
I'm sorry, my voice is not loud.
Did y'all all hear him? Can you repeat it for me?
Yes. So that we have control to some degree over our future in terms of our actions in the present.
Okay, so how do we gain that control? What is it by understanding or through understanding karma that can help us do that, gain control?
By avoiding negative actions, first of all, and accumulating karma that would be harmful to us.
And doing what?
I'm sorry, results that would be harmful as a result of negative actions.
Okay.
We can prevent ourselves or change ourselves to stop doing more harm to ourselves and others.
Okay.
One.
What's another way? Peggy?
To cherish all other sentient beings more than we cherish yourself.
Why does karma, how does karma inform you about that?
Well, just having the opportunity to learn about karma, that if we can train our minds and know that if we put others, we cherish other people, that we are going to have the ripening of positive karma.
Oh, I'm just waving, I'm
I
sorry.
know, that's all right, fair enough.
Whereas the opposite, if we self-cherish to the other extent, the karma will ripen lots of positive.
What do you want to add, Chris?
I think karma is a great way to help you to understand your habitual tendencies. Because those little things is what we do going around, running amok, making our lives tougher than everybody else.
So it's the knowledge, isn't it? It's learning how the Buddha described how things work. That our attitude, our consciousness has an impact on our experiences, and not just instantly, not just in the moment, but over huge expanses of time. Eons, so it's the information we need in order to understand how to remove our suffering, how to end our suffering. It's what we can do immediately to start changing our future experiences, because we can change our actions. It's not so easy or quick to change our mind. That's going to take longer, especially with things we're really habituated to. But we can stop yelling at people, stop stealing, stop, we can choose to stop those behaviors. Now, the more habituated we are to those things, and the more we believe that those things bring us happiness, the harder it is to do that. But it's something that we we actually gives us the knowledge we need to understand our power, the power of our mind and our actions that arise from that. You know, so that can be something we can put into play, you know, right away. Whereas the removal of the basis for our disturbing thoughts that lead to our negative actions is to realize how things actually exist, to remove our ignorance. And that takes a lot more knowledge. And it takes a lot more meditation and a lot more contemplation, and that will take a while. But ultimately, that's where we want to go, because when we realize emptiness, there will be no basis for negative actions at all. They simply, no disturbing thoughts will arise. That's when we're liberated.
So isn't it so that meritorious action plants positive karmic seeds, purifying negative action helps dissolve negative karma?
Positive actions don't purify.
No, I'm saying but purifying actions, right? We can purify
If you
karma.
purify.
Right, we can purify.
Yeah, but
negative
look at it
karma.
this way. We can do that,
Right.
okay?
So my point though is the end game, which is that this helps us achieve a perfect human rebirth at some point. That's our ultimate goal, so that we can.
No, our ultimate goal is to become enlightened.
Okay.
So our intermediate goal is, well, is to take care of our actions in this life.
Mhm.
And that can lead to a positive mind or a peaceful mind, or at least a calm mind at the time of death, which can result in that being a condition for a positive seed to ripen, so we have another good rebirth, you know, and we can continue the work. So purification's important, but if we try to purify our eons of negative actions, we will never get out. This is why eventually we must realize emptiness, because the basis of all of it is our grasping at ourselves. So until we understand and have a realization of emptiness, we continue to be susceptible to the disturbing thoughts that arise from that ignorance. So we have to exert a lot of control, which is fine. So, and it isn't that, you know, to be liberated, we do need to have what's called a direct perception of emptiness, which means instead of thinking about and understanding it, you're having an experience of it. So that takes a high level of concentration. That takes, you know, knowing exactly what you're doing when you're meditating on emptiness for that to happen. So that takes a lot of knowledge and practice. But fortunately, even before we have that, and that's what leads to liberation from samsara. But even before that, we develop a very strong inferential or conceptual understanding of emptiness, which also serves to make it extremely unlikely that disturbing emotions will arise. But it's still possible, because we have not removed the root, the foundation for them, which is ignorance. You look confused.
Well, I was just going to ask if there's a relationship then between karma and realization of emptiness.
Yeah, sure. We need lots of merit to remove our obstacles to realizing it, because it's the perfection of wisdom.
Mhm.
So,
When you say liberation, you're distinguishing between that and enlightenment.
You're distinguishing between that and what?
Enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
yeah. So we're liberated before we're enlightened. So the processes basically that due to ignorance, like if you just want to look at the cycle of birth and death in samsara, you know, it's this grasping at a self and seeing ourselves as existing somehow separate, self-sufficient, independent, that there is this me that is harmed, there's this me that experiences pleasure, that there's, you know, there's just this really strong sense of me, almost as if it's somehow separate from the parts, from the body and the mind, you know, that, you know, exist in a way that we strongly defend and protect and cater to, and all of these things, you know, that is what causes attachment to arise, aversion to arise, because we assume that feeding this sense of self with what we like and protecting this self from what we don't like is the way to have happiness. And the Buddha said that from his observation, that actually that self doesn't exist at all. That's a total fabrication of our mind. It's a complete misunderstanding about how we actually exist, that we're not independent, we're not self-sufficient. There is nothing that screams Tendrin from the side of Tendrin, that we are merely labeled I by conception. And we don't understand what mere, what merely means. We go wild. You look anxious to say something.
Oh no, I just wanted to point out that this is the origination of dualism. The first conception of the I. That's why we see things split.
Yeah.
Because of the I.
Yep. But we want to go deeper than just being non-dual. Because it's not just that the ignorance causes us to see relative, everything being relative, self and other. You know, that's one big important aspect of the faultiness of our assumption about how things exist. And one of the grand difficulties is that things appear to us as existing that way. But it's something more subtle than just the duality, you know, because it's that sense that there's something coming from the side of the object. You know, it's like we imbue duality or relativity with something more than what it is. You know, like intellectually we understand this. We know that short only exists if tall exists. You know, we know that intellectually. But when we're actually interacting, the way things appear to us is if somehow tall is independent of short. You know, like tall's its own thing. So we really need to be aware, and it becomes really obvious that we do this when either something that we consider to belong to us, you know, is threatened, you know, or if we're threatened, then we have this real clear sense of me against you, whatever that is. That is the mistaken sense of self. How does karma help us understand this? What is it about the fact that we can't experience anything that we didn't create the cause for that helps us understand better how we exist?
That we existed before, and there's many times that you think, you know, that mind has been in existence. So it's never just one time, and it's just who you are. And you are that mind forever.
But are we the mind forever?
Not
With
you are
that-
the mind, not you are the mind, but the mind mind is a continuous circle, a continuous.
It's only circular because of samsara, because we grasp it as self. And so we call it circular because there's birth and death. The mind is unceasing.
So you can't label it an I because we're.
You can label it an I, but it's merely labeled an I. Yeah, Anthony.
To answer your question, I guess you could say, I could change my mind to change what I'm experiencing.
So what does that say about our experience?
It's determined by ourselves.
It's determined by ourselves. It's not random. It's not like, ooh, I just landed in this planet, and, I have to figure it out or something. We are directly involved in what manifests for us. We just can't remember how. Because it's not immediate. It's not instant karma. So the teachings on karma help us understand that nothing is happening to us. We're all involved, So it's this, it's not like somehow randomly, we all are in this room at this moment. Our interconnectedness came together, over eons for us to be here. Now, the way I experience this gathering is due to my past actions. It's the result of my past actions. The way that each one of you experience it is the result of your past actions. So it's not something, this idea that things happen to us is missing this interweaving of our experiences with our, with our habits, Does that make any sense? Chris is dying to talk. I want you to just listen, okay? So I need you to settle down. So I think that this is why we really want to think long and hard about what is the consequence of the teachings of karma. What does it mean in our daily life? So how can we apply it? Like Chris has been doing this for a long time, so he's had some really good experiences of the meaning of karma. And that's what we have to work on, is how do we look at these teachings and make it relevant to our understanding of our life every day.
The connectivity, does that really have a big thing to do with it, for the connectivity?
So,
Be connected?
if we're not independent, what are we? We're dependent, right?
No, not so much as saying interdependent.
Yeah, we're interdependent, we're dependent, we're not independent of our experience, So if we have a good interaction with each other, and we both feel like it's a positive action, that's from our own past, that's our experiences, coming together, and, but your past is determining whether or not it's pleasant for you, and my past is determining whether it's pleasant for me, because there's actually nothing coming from the side of the object. Our experience is coming from us, from me. My experience comes from me, Chris's experience comes from him, Ralph's experience comes from him, Raphael's experience comes from him, Nicole's comes from her, Anthony's comes from him, Anthony comes from him, Peggy comes from him. That's the whole extent of my knowledge. Except that's Shuey. And David and Vanessa and Ralph and Hope. I know that side of the room. Francesca, Adrienne, and Beata, and now I'm stumped. Reuben. Okay, I don't think I knew that. So I'm giving myself permission to not have remembered that. And I know I've heard your name, but I don't remember.
Ember.
Ember.
E-M-B-E-R.
Ember Reuben. Francesca. Okay. So each of us it isn't that our experiences are not interconnected with each other. You know, we're conditions for each other. You know, if I come in and I'm really cranky, you know, that might be a condition for you to be, you know, put off, puffy. Or you might see it as, you know, I don't know about this, and you have a negative experience. So it isn't that we don't influence each other. It's, you know, that's what the conditions part. But for you to suffer or to have a pleasant experience, you have to have created the cause for that. And the object isn't the cause for that. This is what's really challenging.
I don't know why, but a light bulb went on my head, and I think for the first time I kind of understand this. So it's not that the things in the outside world don't have independent existence from us. It's that what we experience of them is, and how we respond to it is as a result of our own karma and our own cause.
To a certain degree, I wouldn't use the word independent. You know, that, you know, all of our consciousnesses are its own continuum. They don't get mixed up. Your history never gets mixed up with my history, you know, all of that. We have shared experiences perhaps, but that's, you know, that's the extent of it. So in that sense, we're independent. In that sense, you could say we're separate. However, what Chris was bringing up about non-duality becomes really tricky at this point, you know, because the way we experience the world is very much this idea of separate, independent, you know, that there's us and them, all those dualities. I'm female, you're male, I'm short, you're tall, you know, whatever, all of those things, okay? Those distinctions are all arising from our ignorance. It's like Chris said, in the first moment that we grasp at the self, what results? What's happening? As soon as you grasp at a self,
Me and you.
there has to be a you.
Has to be you.
You know, there has to be other.
It had to be you.
It had to be you. That's right. And it really had to be you because you created the cause for it. So it's just like we can't get away from ourselves. So, but this is what's so interesting. So what Peggy was saying about cherishing others, the more that we can recognize that actually our happiness is entirely dependent on others. You know, not in the sense of inherently existent others, you know, independent others, but that this is, you know, we're all in it together. there isn't this somehow that there are living beings with a mind that exist that aren't part of our existence. And samsara, it's just a matter of time when we run into them again, you know. This is the idea behind the teaching on trying to imagine that all sentient beings have been our mothers in the past. Because if our consciousness has never not existed, and everybody else's consciousness has never not existed, we've just been trading places on the roles we play in each other's lives. So, you know, this is like, I always have trouble which class I brought this up in. You know, like, if I had this thing, you know, that life was unfair for girls, you know, so, you know, I was mad at guys for this because it was their fault, you know. All I've done is swap places, you know. Of course, in some other life, I was the one who was, you know, favored over the other group, whatever that group might be, and we just traded places. So as long as we keep that division between us going, we'll just keep trading places.
It makes it very hard to be comfortably judgy of other people.
It makes it ridiculous to be judgmental of others. There's no basis for it. They are just like us. Their habit energies and their karmic seeds ripening are what determining what they're experiencing, but their capacity for Buddhahood is exactly the same. When we remove our ignorance, when we fully develop our wisdom, fully develop our compassion, you know, all of the images of Manjushri or Chenrezig or Medicine Buddha or Tara, they all have exactly the same qualities. They're depicted differently to emphasize particular qualities, not because one of them's better at this than the other. They're exactly the same. It's for our sake, to help us understand the power of enlightened beings, that we make these distinctions, because there isn't actually a distinction. Even though they all have different histories, all enlightened beings have different histories, they all are omniscient. So everybody knows what everybody else knows. Just, you know. So even though your history's different, everybody knows it. You know, and they know exactly what it is. Because their mind's no longer bound by their ignorance in this little space. It pervades everything. So that pervades all our minds, all the space we're in, all of that. They have no ignorance whatsoever. So the way we feel all encapsulated in these little separate pods, you know, and the fact that we have these rooms and buildings and roads, all of this is all a reflection of our misunderstanding how we exist. So karma, our actions based on ignorance, is what shapes our experience. What manifests for us. We all have the collective karma to be on this kind of planet. All 7 billion human beings, plus however many trillion other living beings there are on this planet. But there can be many universes with different conditions, depending on the karmic seed that ripened for the beings that inhabit it. And we can change worlds depending on our mind at the time of death. So it's a very rich piece of information, this karma thing. So, what's wonderful about it is it's telling us that we have the power to completely stop suffering and to experience nothing but bliss. Anybody object to that? Yeah. We don't have proof of that. But that's what it's saying, is that we can stop experiencing suffering because we're creating the cause. And when we understand how we're creating the cause and stopping that, we will not have these kinds of experiences.
We may not have proof, but we have suggestions that it's reasonable.
Yeah, well, and that's what we have to contemplate. We have to really look at. Because we do see evidence of cause and effect all around us. And what this is just saying is consciousness plays a part. You know, it's not like just because, you know, now scientists often fall into this idea that the mind is no more than electrical whatever, you know, and Buddhism disagrees with that. It says conscious is separate from the body. So we have two parts. We have a body and we have a mind. You know, and they are inseparable in the sense that a mind always needs a body. You know, so, but the quality of the body matters only in samsara. I mean, an enlightened being can emanate as anything, take the form of anything, and it's still an enlightened being taking that form. It doesn't become, you know, if it's a mosquito, it doesn't become a stupid mosquito. It's an enlightened mosquito. You know. So, you know, now, an enlightened being wouldn't take the form of a mosquito unless it can benefit someone. You know, like other mosquitoes, perhaps. I don't know. Try to lead them around a stupa. Follow me, you know. Whoever leads the bees, you know, around, you know, who knows? So, but the thing of it is, the quality of their mind is no longer being determined by the quality of their body, because they're out of samsara. You know, we're vulnerable to the different kinds of bodies we inhabit because of our ignorance, because we're stuck in this cycle. Make sense? Not making sense.
One level. It's just so.
I know. It's
Fun,
like,
man.
what?
Fun. It's huge.
It's outrageous. You know, the Buddha really, you know, it wasn't like a little thing he introduced into the discussion about how we exist, or because an awful lot of what the Buddha taught was no different than what other spiritual folks taught at the time, except this one, about our understanding of how we exist is bogus. It has no actual foundation. We're wrong. Okay. So it's a simple process, but that's why the ignorance that is the grasping of the self is so important, because it all starts with that. So the two things we want to do is really reflect, you know, keep reflecting on how we hold ourselves to exist, which means what? How can we do that? Yeah.
Observation. Objective observation. You know, like when I'm looking at myself every day, even when I drive the car, I can see and feel my emotion, and I can watch it, as opposed to grabbing it. It's like when you're at the bus stop. You can smell, hear the heat of the bus, you feel the wind, but you have the choice to step on. It's the same thing with what I look at.
And you can see when you're unhappy, and perhaps fiercely unhappy, how much there is this, almost like, like, excuse me. There's this me that becomes quite tangible feeling. I'm sorry. Don't speak to me that way. Oh. Karma helps us step back and go, wow, I've talked to other people that way, haven't I? And now I'm getting it. The good news is the Buddha said, hey, that self I'm all worried about the reputation, or somebody thinking that I would do such a thing, or that it's okay to talk to me that way, blah, blah, doesn't exist at all. That's a total story we've got going in our mind. And if we just understand that what we're experiencing is the ripening of some seed, and not take it so personally, we can not get hooked. And we can also see that self that has some sort of independent, controlling existence. That the Buddha said, by the way, that doesn't exist at all. You've made that person up. So you want to observe. You want to keep noticing. So it's really helpful to really notice when you're getting huffy or upset or irritated. How are you thinking about this I? And you can do it as well when you're really happy about something. When you've just heard some really good news. Ooh, that's great. I'm really happy. That sense of I becomes quite different than just somebody calling you and say, what are you doing? Oh, I'm brushing my teeth. We use I then, and it doesn't mean a whole lot to us. Unless we go, you're interrupting me. Give me a chance to, you've called me 4 times in a row now. I need a little bit of time to brush my teeth. As soon as we get disturbed, whether it's a positive agitation or a negative agitation, this sense of I becomes a lot clearer. And it tends to take over. That's where we get indignant or angry or scared. It's from that. This I has to have something. It has to be protected. Because there's all them. Oops. And them, are threatening I. So.
It's quite the habit. I'm constantly astounded with how strong that habit of mind is.
It's innate, and it's from beginningless time. So this again underscores the effort that it takes to counter it. And also, we need patience with ourselves. That of course it's going to arise, and it's going to arise again, and it's going to arise again. What we can start to do is not take it so seriously. Like, oh, there I am. And just kind of, okay. And recognize that all the people we're interacting with are doing exactly the same thing. The person who's angry or, talking to us in some rude way has felt injured by you. So right then, they're defending their I. So the less we can take it personally and understand that we created the cause from this, like maybe 17 trillion eons ago, we have 2 choices. We can keep it going, responding kind, keep holding on to that I, or we can let that seed exhaust without creating any more on top of it. So that, you know, we interrupt and just exhaust. We can even take it a step further and purify. Or we think, wow, I really regret ever treating anyone this way because it sucks. I don't like receiving it. So I'm really sorry I created this cause. And, you know, I can't remember exactly when. Most of the time we can think of at least once. So, but I've done it again and again and again, and this really doesn't feel good. And I've, you know, pressed the button of that person's story. So, you know, so I regret it. I'm going to work hard at trying not to do that. Then we're purifying. So we're not just exhausting the seed. The exhausting of the seed happens all by itself. Once it's ripened, it will end. It doesn't have a indefinite lifespan. It comes to an end. You know? But to purify it, to help prevent the other seeds we placed on our mental continuum that are similar to it, we have to apply the four opponent powers. So the more we think about these things, or at least, you know, and then try to remember, okay, I'm just going to try that today. You know, I'm going to try that whenever I start feeling injured or just even, you know, whatever, dissatisfied in some way, I'm going to accept responsibility for the experience and try to apply the four opponent powers. And just see what happens. Just see how that feels. You know, as you practice that, you might find that it gives you a certain distance from that I that allows you to ignore your habit energy that's pushing you to, you know, keep the cycle going. Does that make sense?
I got a question, I think. Could you, in terms of actions, I can't stop thinking about, I guess it's the Buddha or Siddhartha sitting under the tree when the raft comes down with the guitar, someone taking a guitar lesson?
Oh, you're thinking of Indra. Supposedly after, there's a part of a tradition that says that after he was enlightened, Indra came down, and Indra was the one who bestowed his enlightenment on other people. That's a segue of a certain Buddhist tradition.
Something about, yeah, the strings being too tight, finding that out when the strings are too tight.
Yeah, there's an analogy. Like one of the things that they talk about in the Tales of the Buddha is that he does many years of severe austerity. You know, like, you know, you've seen the images of the Buddha that's like skeleton-like. And then one day you realize, this doesn't work. I don't know why that's such a popular stat. It's very interesting to me that that's considered such a, you know, a cherished image of the Buddha, because actually the Buddha went, well, that doesn't work. You know, I think I'll eat.
Get some food, guys. Now left.
And of course, being the Buddha, well, he's not the Buddha yet, you know, but someone's right there to offer him some food because he's created the cause for that, because he's figured out, oh, this doesn't work, you know. So that's the middle way. It's like, there are many ways it's the middle way. That expression is referring to many aspects of how we need to understand how things exist, but also in how we practice. That you have to, it's this process. If we're hoping we can just wake up tomorrow and no longer grasp at the I, we're going to fail. And then we might go to the conclusion it's not possible. And then we just give up. You know? So we really need to put it all in context. That just like Ralph was saying, wow, it's really amazing how strong that habit is. It's not going to just go away just because someone's taught you about something that, you know, the way to approach it differently. It's harder than that. So the way I look at it is, to me, my disturbing emotions, my ignorance feels like a tsunami. a mental tsunami. Well, we have to counter that. So what we're countering it eventually needs to be stronger than that tsunami. No, that takes effort and practice and correct knowledge. So it takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of thinking about what you've studied. You know, it takes you going out and trying things out and really developing your ability to observe how you think, you know, so that you can start changing it up a bit. And what's nice is it isn't like you need to go out and go, I can't forget, you know, because that won't work. That's too tight. The strings are too tight. You also don't go out and go, you know, I just need a day off. Today I think I'll not act like a nun. You know, that's not gonna work either. You know, not a good plan. Not a good plan. So, you know, we have to find our own pace that is steady. You know, the monks at Sarah have a sort of running joke about, you know, 3-day Buddhas. You know, these people who come to the monastery and they're really, really keen and they practice so hard, and then they give up and they leave. You know, we don't want that. We want to find a pace that we can wake up, practice today, practice tomorrow, practice next week, practice the week after that. You know, it's just like exercise, you know, the weekend warrior problem, you know, of where you finally go, oh, you know, I haven't done anything in weeks, so let's go play, you know, in a tennis tournament. And then you pull every muscle in your body, and then you can't, you know, play tennis for another month, you know, so you've done it to yourself again, you know. So it's really, and it's really easy to do, to kind of, you know, start adding to your daily practice and realizing, well, I'm just going to have to quit my job, you know, and then you might quit your job, which may or may not be a good idea, you know, or you might go, this is ridiculous, there's no point, so you stop trying. So we need to find our pace that can help us go steadily, because all we need to do is go in the right direction. We don't have to be goal oriented. We just need to keep going in the right direction. So we have to find our own pace where we can have steady, consistent, continuous practice, you know. And how do we figure that out?
Trial and error.
There's a lot of error. A lot of error. You know, you just have to, but fortunately, if you're doing the most important practice, which is observing your mind, you'll catch it. You'll realize, you know, I'm overdoing it, you know, and so you can back off. Yeah.
I'm confused if you aren't goal oriented, then how do you know you're in the right direction?
Because it's not about the goal. You can just look at your mind. Is your mind becoming more positive, more kind? Are you less judgmental towards others? You know, you can look at those kinds of things. Eventually, with enough steady practice, you will see lots of things don't arise very often in your mind. Like you might used to have had a problem with rage, and now not so much, you know. So you'll see changes in the way you think. You know? You'll have a little better ability to, you know, and it just depends on, you know, like if you could stay with the observing, you know, all of a sudden one day you'll go, you know, something will happen, and you'll realize, I don't react to this the same way I used to, you know. Now, in order to know whether you're in the right direction or not, this is why you have to study. You know, it's because we need to make sure we're not applying these principles to our worldly concerns. You know, because, I mean, that's also possible, you know, like developing concentration, developing your self, you know, your observation, developing your mindfulness of others can really help you in business. Certainly can help you in sales. It can, you know, there are all sorts of worldly things it can help you with. You know, and if you get hooked by that, you're going off into
Trouble.
well, it's just not going to benefit you in, you know, going towards enlightenment. It might make you richer in money, but it's you know, it's not leading where you want to go. So that's why motivation in the morning is important.
I was going to say that I've been reading from a children's book on I forget
No
the
Time
title.
to Lose.
No, the one on Shantideva's, the Bodhisattva Way. Is that it?
No
Anyway.
Time to Lose. Yeah.
Yeah. That really gives you that sense of motivation. That you're not doing this, unlike most religious and spiritual movements. You're not doing this for your own salvation. You're not doing this to eliminate just your suffering. You're doing it to eliminate the suffering of others. That seems like a good test to me, whether you're moving in the right direction or not. Is, you know, if what I'm doing is making others suffer less. So my kinder speech is not inflicting my less kind speech. Believe me, I'm good at that. You know, on others, I'm going out of my way to try to help others. So
Right.
that's keeping that motivation in mind makes it easier to see if you're going in the right direction.
Well, and I think all religions actually teach that. You know, it's this idea that how we treat others matters.
Right.
You know, whether you're, you know, removing the causes for your suffering in the future, or you're pleasing God, you know, and you end up in heaven, you know. I mean, these are things that you know, all the religions seem to agree upon.
It's just the emphasis is slightly different.
Yeah, it's different. And so we have the dispositions of mind that this suits us. Others need that different kind of motivation, you know. So it's just this, and this is why they emphasize so much in the Mahayana traditions, you know, that yes, you have to accomplish your own welfare. You have to remove all your suffering and attain the mind of bliss and have the mind of omniscience in order to be able to benefit others. So you don't lose. It's a total win-win situation. But if you're focused on your win, you won't get there, because that becomes an obstacle. And this is one of the most interesting things, is when you are either here yourself, or you're thinking back on something, or you see it in someone else, or, you know, obviously we don't have clairvoyance, we're guessing, but, you know, where we can see the self-interest preventing them from seeing other options, you know, that they are, or you are holding on to one idea so strongly that you can't quite see that there might be other solutions to a problem. That's the self-interest blocking you from wisdom. And so that's why if we have our own needs at the forefront, we'll make mistakes. We simply can't see through our self-interest to be able to see what might be best. You know, so this is the challenge. You know, this is why looking at where am I in this picture is so important. You know, to observe. Yes.
They mentioned something about religion. When you think about religion, then you tend to focus on soul, spirit. So I haven't heard that word.
Buddhism doesn't. Yeah, and there's a reason for that. Because there's no teaching on that. Because, and of course, this all depends on definition. You know, that in most traditions, the idea of a spirit or a soul implies something that is permanent, unchanging, that, you know, is our essence, you know, and that does not exist according to Buddhism. So it's just a different view. Now, an enlightened mind, you know, would, you know, probably seem very similar, you know, to a God, you know. It's just that so definition makes a big difference here. So the biggest difference, I think, from Buddhism to many of the, at least the Western religions, is that that Buddhism doesn't posit a creator God who, I don't know, like gives us that soul, you know, that we have the essence of God, and, you know, that doesn't exist in Buddhism. We create our universe through our ignorance. Whereas when we finally eliminate that ignorance, we still exist. It just doesn't, it isn't this. It's just a state of bliss. Because we have no disturbing emotions. So even though, you know, as long as they're beings in samsara, enlightened beings will be there. I mean, they don't have any place to go because they don't actually have to move, so because they're everywhere. You know, they will emanate help in whatever way is needed, in whatever way we've created the cause to receive that help. But, you know, but they're in bliss all the time. They're not suffering because they see us suffering. They know our suffering's totally unnecessary and that it's coming from our ignorance. It's really outrageous. Yeah.
And then we have Buddhahood, right?
And then we have Buddhahood.
Well, and that we have, the fact that we have Buddha potential.
Buddha potential just means we have that capacity to experience existence in that blissful way without the duality, without this sense of us and them, without this sense of separation, which is all false. You know, I mean, even if you look, you know, if we all had the eyes of electron microscopes or whatever, we, you know, developing to even see, you know, we would see no separate beings. You know, we have the elements, you know, in our bodies. And apparently the elements that have existed since the Big Bang, you know, so I mean, it's not, you know, it's nothing new. So, and this is what we need to be able to understand, that our experience of this kind of solid, concrete, independent kind of existence is due to our grasping at a self. The fact that we feel lonely comes from grasping at a self. We wouldn't have that if we are liberated from samsara. It comes from ignorance. It comes from this insistence that somehow there's a me and you threaten me. Or you help me and then you're my friend. You know, temporarily, until you quit helping me. Or ask me for something. Depending on just how greedy you are. So, you know. So it's interesting. Are people getting cold? Huh? No. Yes, no. Okay.
It's good to be cold once in a while.
I know. I really enjoyed the coolness of the floor. Wow, this is great. You know, and it's so ridiculous, isn't it? I woke up this morning, it was cold, and it was like, wow. I mean, it just changes my whole mood, you know? I am so attached to cool weather. It is clear that I am not doing the 4 opponent powers enough when it's hot. You know, so.
But you're from New Orleans.
I know. I know.
And now you're here.
Yeah, and I was in Australia. It's no better. You think I'd get with the program? Yep.
Coming
But
from
no,
Boston.
You know, I suffer terribly. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
So, you know, but I have a choice, yes.
So the existence of life.
Yeah.
Some cultures believe there's a God, whatever. There's another ones who think about being back. So what is the idea of Buddhism about?
That consciousness has always existed. Your consciousness has always existed. My consciousness has always existed. Everybody's consciousness has always existed. And then physicality, the parts that make up these bodies, others, that also has always existed. How those two interact is dependent on our minds. So the universe comes into being because we grasp it as self.
So is there a beginning or there's not?
No, there's no beginning.
So there's no end.
There's no end. That's why we don't need to take ourselves so seriously, you know, because we'll be back. You know, so in that dark alley, people always go up, yeah, but if someone's coming at me in a dark alley, you know, I'm going to try to kill them, you know. His Holiness would say, well, you want to think about that, because you're going to be back. And it's just, how do you want to be back? Do you want to kind of go through the hell realms for a while? Or do you want to just try to get away? Nobody says don't run. Or don't try to take the gun away, you know, all that stuff. It's this idea that somehow this person, independent of me, of anything I've done, is trying to harm me. And the Buddha's going, no, 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 no. You've done this to them. And they're just getting even now. You know, and unwisely. Because they're going to, you know, they're creating the cause to keep this cycle going. And if I retaliate, I will be too. We'll just keep meeting in these dark alleys. So it's this, you know, that, now, obviously, you have to be really advanced not to protect yourself, you know, in light of these things. But we can work on, at least, at the very least, not hating the person. Understanding that the action is very harmful, but the person is just another suffering sentient being who's totally mistaken about how to become happy. It's just a reflection of their suffering. That we can work on. The more we can understand that we can't experience something that we didn't create the cause for, we can understand that it's not someone doing something to us, that we created the cause for this experience. Doesn't mean we have to just go, oh, kill me now, because I'm sure I created the cause. That would be unwise. We have a precious human rebirth. We can do a lot with it. But we do want to not judge others based on their actions. You know, we need to recognize, in fact, compassion can arise. You know, that says, wow, this person's setting up, you know, the scenario of being born in the hell realms. And have compassion for them, for that future suffering. It's challenging. Did you have your hand?
Yeah. You said we have always existed. So karma does not really have a starting point. It's just
Ignorance. Like you can read the Abhidharma Kosha, I think, or, you know, like Vasubandhu's Treasury. Yeah, that one. Treasury something. And it describes how in the beginning of this universe, humans didn't have these gross bodies, you know, and it just gets more and more gross. So the universe gets more and more gross itself. You know, it's like until the planets form and you can live on the planets, you know, and then we grasp at the planets and then we want to live on the planet, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that just happens with every time a universe comes into existence. You know, It's like, okay, this Big Bang created this universe, you know, there's nothing, we don't have to disagree with physics, that's how this, but we, you know, but it will cease. That's what a great, when we talk about 3 countless eons, a countless eon is a time for a universe to come into existence and go away. So there are 3 universes that have come into existence, you know, by the time we get our action. Anyway. But, you know, this is like from entering the path of accumulation, you know? We're not even on a path, you know, so.
So it starts low in ignorance and only tends to go up, right?
Well, it's habit.
Okay.
So the more powerful our habit is, the stronger the result. But we've been there before. It's all interdependent on the conditions. So the physical conditions of the universe are going to have an impact. You know, it's very huge. Yes, Anthony.
So, I don't want to get too caught up on jargon here, but you said our ignorance creates our reality?
Yep.
Okay, so for an enlightened being, what creates their reality?
Bliss.
Okay.
They're non-ignorance.
So that their wisdom and,
Well, they're omniscience.
okay, so they
They
create-
just exist.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't tell you what that'd be
Can't check
like.
in.
Because it's nothing like what we experience. This is the difficulty. You know, we think the kind of pleasure we experience in this existence gives us a clue to what it would be like to have bliss with no disturbing emotions, and we don't have a clue.
It's our minds that create our reality, but our ignorance in particular is that.
It's the grasping into self, and then everything that goes with that grasping causes our disturbing states of mind to arise, because we do everything from the perspective of this sense of self. You know, this is the issue. You know? So it isn't like, the simplest way for me to try to explain it, and obviously I'm not enlightened, so I don't have all the facts, but you know, I have some ignorance I have lots of ignorance operating here, but it's like the physical elements interact with our consciousness in the same way, you know, to manifest things in this way, but also because there's also the law of physics that's operating in this universe, okay? So, but just like, I'll try not to use this example, because Ralph said, no, it was Alberto or Jack was arguing about it, but, you know, if you want an orchard of apple trees, you need apple seeds, right? You need the sun, the water, blah, 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 all those things that go into growing an apple tree, right, from those seeds. But you also have to have a consciousness that says, let's plant an orchard of rose and da-da-da-da. That doesn't just happen. Consciousness is involved then. Someone has this idea. You know, when crops were invented, that took someone saying, oh, let's quit walking endless miles gathering things. Let's take some of these seeds and see what happens if we put them in the ground. And then we can just, you know, create some hammocks, lie around. I mean, there are tribes in the Amazon that spend 2 hours a day taking care of everything they need to do in order to have what they need to survive, you know, their food and da-da-da, and basically do drugs the rest of the time. Too bad, they're wasting all that free time. But it's, you know, because that's all it takes for them to survive. I have a friend who collected shaman knowledge, ethnobotanist,
Peru?
for the Smithsonian.
Ayahuasca.
Hmm?
Ayahuasca.
That's what he's telling
Mark
me.
Plotkin. He wrote The Shaman's Apprentice. He was a classmate of mine. So this is, you know, this is the thing, is that had a point.
Creating reality.
That consciousness interacts with physical stuff. You know?
I mean, it obviously does. My brain makes my hand move, right?
Right. So, and, you know,
Unless you wanna
it's
do
not
the
a
angels come down
stretch.
and-
Now, if you read Stephen Hawking's book on, what is it?
Brief history of time.
No, that,
Universe in
the,
a nutshell?
hmm?
The universe in a nutshell.
No. No Intelligent Designer, which is not the name of the book, but basically it talks about how it's possible for, you know, a world that's as complex, a universe as complex as ours is, to just be cause and effect. You know, you can just go back and explain this, explain that, and explain that, and explain that, all the way back to the Big Bang. You know, Buddhism just says it's not the first Big Bang. It's not the last Big Bang. You know.
So if anyone's that big of a bang.
And it's probably not even the only Big Bang happening in this time frame, you know? Yeah, so, you know, that, and so what Buddhism is trying to introduce to the Buddha was trying to have us understand is it's not just a collection of physical parts that are coming together. It's also our consciousness that's driving the shape of things. And since we grasp at a self, we end up with this very strong sense of separateness. And very, you know, our universe is expanding. We're getting farther apart. It's like, okay, maybe the more gated communities we create, the faster the universe will expand. It's like creating the cause, you know? So, and I live in one, so hey, you know, there you go. But this, you know, so this is the thing. We can't, you know, we can't find proof of all this at the beginning. We don't know enough. You know, we don't have any realizations. But, you know, it's sort of like what they advise us to do. The teachers advise us to just like all the things that we're not quite sure about. We just put them on the shelf, and every now and then we look at them again and see if, you know, what we think about it now, you know, and you just keep doing that until you have realizations, and then you won't have doubt, you know. And when you develop clairvoyance, you'll be able to see not only some of your previous lives, but others as well. So it's not like we'll be in the dark forever. And it's not even that we'll be in the dark, well, we will if we don't do the work. I mean, you have to do things to actualize these things. But it's, you know, it's not like we have to wait till, you know, we're almost there to discover this truth path. You know, these are things before we're even on a path, you know, we can find out. So that's kind of cool.
So where do you think the grasping of the self comes in that, within all that?
It's just what we do.
I mean, as far as coming to the realization, of, you know.
That we aren't that way.
That, yeah, that you don't, self-cherishing, and where does that fit in with all these other concepts? Would that be something that you would try to, realize that first, to keep you from?
No, you have to do it all at the same time. It's this idea that we have to look at, oh, the way I think things exist is that people do things to me. And it's bad luck, good luck, random, life's not fair.
So like the diminishing of your self, cherishing, having less, importance of yourself. When your self starts to, come down to a level where you say, I'm not my universe, I am not the universe. Then you finally get that.
Well, that's a starting point. It's not sufficient.
Yeah.
But that's the idea of developing equanimity. Oh, I'm not any different than any of these other suffering sentient beings. And the only reason I call these folks friends and these folks enemies and these folks strangers is from my point of view. These folks help me, these folks hurt me, these folks I haven't even met. So it's about really understanding that the way we perceive things is out of whack with how they actually are. You know, we think friends are friends because they're special people, not because they do what we like. That is just from our point of view. And that's the same thing with grasping at a self. We forget that everybody's a self. You know, we focus on self and other instead of the fact that we're all selves. We all have the same name, me. You know,
Just so you realize you're not that important, you know.
that you're exactly the same as everybody else. No one's that important. No one's that unimportant. We are exactly the same. We're in the same boat, wanting the same thing, and we don't know what we're doing.
And that's a good start towards happiness.
Yes, and it's a good start of lessening that grip on thinking that happiness exists out here instead of from our within, from our attitude. And so this, you know, learning about karma helps you understand that you're not some innocent bystander over here having all this stuff being done to you, that you've been an active participant for all existence, you know, and you reap what you sow.
It sort of levels the playing field and everything, just makes everything just kind of, you just feel more equal, in balance.
But we're out of balance because of our ignorance. So we keep trying to work on recognizing that it's our grasping at ourself, putting ourself above others, that throws it all out of whack. And, you know, and that can have the result of really, when good things happen to you, that's nice, you enjoy that good thing, but you don't get hooked by it, you don't crave more of it. When something bad happens to you, oh good, I'm exhausting, whatever. You don't get hooked by it. You don't, you know, it's a very interesting thing. Because we create our suffering.
The same with dying, because then you realize you're gonna die, so you're just the same, you know, knowing that you're not that important, that you're not gonna die.
You'll be
that
back.
You will die.
Yeah, you will die. This body will end. And you might as well have a relaxed state of mind. There's nothing to be afraid of, even though it might look very scary. But you just think, oh, great. I can't wait to meet the people I can help in the next life. I mean, literally, that's how we can deal with this. You know, it takes practice. You know, and then our loved ones, we don't even have to we don't even have to feel like, oh, we're gonna lose them. No, you'll see them again. You won't recognize them for a few eons, perhaps, but you know, if you have strong karmic connections, you're gonna meet again. If you have positive karmic connections, you'll have dharma companions in the future. You know, I mean, that's how it works. So there's really no need to panic. It's more like, oh, okay, now I get to meet some old friends who weren't here in this. So, and may I remember, may I go for refuge, may I please meet teachers right away. I don't want to meet them at 40, you know, let's meet them earlier. So, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, when you try to take care of your loved ones, because if they don't have these teachings, they're probably going to suffer. So we want to make it easier for them to let go. And that's not easy. But we don't have to be disturbed by it. We can just know, okay, hopefully I've planted a seed and they'll meet the teachings in the future. So, yeah.
I hesitate to ask this because I don't want you to tell me that I'm wrong, but
I understand that.
It occurred to me the other day that there's sort of potentially a thumb on the scale, in that as time goes by, there's more and more enlightened beings. as there's more and more enlightened beings, there's more and more available help.
No.
See, I knew you were gonna say that. I'm not gonna listen.
There's as much help as you need, always, because enlightened beings have no limits. You'd only need one if you create the cause for their help.
Oh,
Yeah, you have to do the work.
I was looking for an out.
And I think
Yeah.
we mentioned it before, but,
Yeah.
you know, with even referencing science, like time's not linear, right?
Yeah, so, yeah,
Okay,
that's
very
gonna
good point.
really throw a twist in the,
Yeah.
you know, be interesting to see how we respond to teachings when scientists finally kind of teach us that, hey, guess what? You know, so, you know, yeah, it all, and it's, oh, it's gone. I'm losing brain cells by the, I don't know, the billions every second, I think, so. But yeah,
See, I just like the idea that there was sort of this thumb on the scale that was getting heavier. as
yeah,
the eons
yeah, wouldn't that
passed.
be nice? But if that were true, we'd all be enlightened. The Buddhists wouldn't wait.
Mm.
You know, if they could help us in that way, we'd be there.
It's too easy.
Yeah, I mean, if it was easy, we'd be there. Because they wouldn't let us suffer. Because we suffer horribly. It's not like we have, you know, the inconvenience of, you know, a fungus on your face. I have that at the moment. So,
Okay.
you know.
I was like, where did that come
comes
from?
You know, you have to use, you know, concrete examples, you know, but we have horrific suffering. You know, so it's, no one would let us suffer if they could prevent it. I mean, who would do that? You know, if they would do that, I don't wanna be like them. You know? So,
See, I knew I shouldn't have
yeah, sorry.
asked.
Yep.
I just wanted to tell you, I used to have those conceptions a lot too, but I came to a point where I sat down and I kind of saw, if I'm going to have my finger on a place of progress, so to
Yeah.
speak, what is that? That's a self-projection of my past. So I'm going to take something that's dead and try to throw it into something that doesn't even exist yet. So I'm playing with myself if I do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is
You
the
know?
thing, is that as soon as we try to label a goal and that, oh, I'm there, you know, something's going to arise in some sorrow. And if you think that that's evidence that, oh, I'm sorry, I've done everything right, how can this be happening? So it's probably not possible, you abandon it. You know, so you have to be very careful about your expectations, because they can become obstacles to you actually accomplishing anything. Because karma ripens not linearly. It's not like, you know, we, in every aspect of our lives, we know more today than we did a while ago. No, some places, some areas, you know, we still don't get it. You just don't get it, you know, because we have an obstacle to that in this life, you know. I don't care how hard I try, I could not be a brain surgeon. Not gonna happen. So, because I have an obstacle to it. It's not that my mind doesn't have the capacity to learn that, given all the right conditions, but I don't have the right conditions. You know, it's like I have too much of the ick factor. I'm sorry, I don't want to play with your brain. So, I have too much of, you know, like, oh, but what if I kill them? And it wouldn't be about you, trust me. I just wouldn't want to be the one who didn't do it right. So, you know, these are obstacles. Doesn't say anything about my capacity. It just says something about my limitations in this life and what's ripening in this life. So, I was thinking we finished at 8:30. It must be December. I'm in holiday mode. Fungus on the face notwithstanding. So, it's getting better.
Visibly.
Yeah.
It's gone away, I can't see
Yes,
it.
I know. It is going away. Okay, any burning questions?
Keep you here for days.
Hmm?
I said I'd go for days, but I should be quiet.
Yes, oh, good, okay. I support you in that. So, I mean, this is outrageous stuff. But don't worry, we don't have to grasp it. I mean, this is stuff you go back to again and again and again, and slowly, you kind of go, oh, there might be some truth to this. Yeah. Oh, my attitude may be causing me to suffer.
But you know, it's funny because it isn't and it isn't, and I say that in the sense that I have a very real sense of when I'm willing to be accountable and responsible in my observation, when I'm willing to look at things truthfully and respond rather than react in a truthful, honest way, I feel differently.
Yes.
I'm more connected to things. This I think is in essence what we're going through in a larger cosmic sense, to be honest. But so the evidence is there, as scant as it may be and as present as it may be. But I can very easily begin to see how that can expand because I see the reaction of other people, how they respond to me
Right.
when I respond differently.
Yeah.
If I'm deeply listening to somebody exercising compassionate thought, somebody rear-ended me on the highway the other day, and my immediate thought after I started dabbling the coffee off my clothes was, oh my God, she must feel horrible,
Yeah.
because I've done that. I've rear-ended somebody. I know how I felt, and so it becomes, and she obviously, maybe not so obviously, but she really appreciated me not being a ranting maniac when I got in my car. I'm sure she expected me to hop in my car and start screaming like a banshee. So that impacted her, and who knows how that affected the rest of.
But that's what's beautiful is we can rejoice in those moments if we don't have expectations to be further along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's why expectations get in the way. I should be there by now, you know. But instead, if we just notice, wow, you know, look how I responded to this. You know, this is different. You know, then we can just be happy about the changes we make. Because for me, yes, I don't have any grand realizations, you know, but I totally trust that so far so good. I definitely have a better life. I definitely have fewer regrets. All of those things are better. You know, so good enough.
Take it a day at a time.
I don't even know if I do that. It's really just notice. Just notice what's going on in your mind, you know, and not put it on the scale and say, oh, okay, what kind of person am I today? You know, you just kind of just keep, you know, when you notice like, oh, you're losing it here, you know, okay, it's that humbling reminder, more work to do, you know, and then those moments where you know, and it's good to try to keep noticing. This is why we want to set a motivation in the morning, try to remember that motivation through the day, and then keep just noticing the mind. And at the end of the day, you know, kind of set, you know, the intention to work on whatever didn't go so well, a little harder tomorrow, well, maybe not a little harder, but just continue working on it. And really rejoice in the things that you notice because it's not just that you have to notice the good stuff that is new, you also just want to notice the good person that you already are. You know, that we're not these evil, greedy, horrible beings in every moment. We're like that a lot, but we're not in every moment. So we want to rejoice in those. You know, so it's just, you know, not getting goal oriented. It's more like, you know, I sleep better at night because I have fewer regrets. You know, I know I'm a nicer person. Am I nice enough? No.
But you know, this is so crazy. So I can exercise this type of compassion, feel a certain way, respond in certain ways, but that was yesterday. Today, I got to a point where during the day at one point I was like, I want to kill myself.
Right. And so this is why expectations won't help, because this is how we are. And we have to respect that. We have to understand, I've got lots of habit energy here. And so when we're having, when it's really that tsunami's coming through, we have to find a way to float, and it's going to be different every day. And we don't have to feel bad about that. We just have to keep going. It's just like, we have to apply the antidotes we can. Obviously, we know that if our habit energy is, wanting to kill ourselves, well, that won't help. You'll be back. So, might as well keep working in this life, It's not like you can escape.
Pit stop first.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna escape that
Yeah, a
one.
little
but-
pit stop first.
Yeah, and it's not a good one.
Yeah, not a good one.
That
Little
pit
pit
stop's
stop.
not so good. So, it's sort of like, okay, what can I do to help, in this moment? Because often the person we most need to help is ourselves. And that's okay. Everybody benefits if we take care of ourselves. As long as we're not putting ourselves above everybody else. Yep.
I just think this is an example of something that I couldn't pull off. But one of my neighbors, a new couple moved into the neighborhood. It was their third day there, and one of my neighbors, and it's sad, she had an episode. She's being treated. It'll get better. But she took a pickaxe and beat the bejesus out of their brand new car.
Thank
And-
goodness it was a car.
Yeah, well, that was the first thing that everybody, after everybody calmed down, it was, thank God it was just a car. But we were also feeling really bad for our new neighbors, hi, welcome to Monterey Lake. And they were away when this transpired, so when they came back, I happened to be outside with the dog, because that's what I do. And he looked at the car, and the police were there still, and they talked to him, and he just started laughing. And I was like, okay, there's no way I would pull that off. If I saw my car beat up by, crazy person with a pickaxe, I would not have started laughing.
What you want to try to do, though, David, is start thinking, wow, that looks like a good way to respond to that.
Yeah,
Instead of telling
exactly.
yourself, I wouldn't be able to do that.
I was thinking that laughter can disarm a lot of those negative emotions.
No kidding.
And he saw the humor in the situation, and, what he said that I overheard was, it's just a thing. That's why I have insurance. And I thought that was really amazing.
It is amazing. And it's
Especially
really
being
adult.
yeah, maybe that's why it's so amazing to me.
Well, I mean, and this is the thing, we certainly elevate our possessions to a ridiculous level of importance, but it's being able to, first of all, what's the easiest way to create merit?
Rejoice in others.
Rejoice in other people's positive actions. You get some merit for that.
Ooh.
Because you're happy about a positive mind or a positive action. So that's virtuous. So, write that down. So that's the easy, that's, Lamiyashi called it the lazy way to accumulate merit. So we can always, and we can go, ooh, I hope I could be like that, but I think having compassion for the person, and it's so helpful. You see, when people are, unwell mentally, or if they're out of their minds due to drugs or alcohol, it's easy for us to see that they're out of control. my parents came home one time to their car that they left in the driveway was totally torched, you know, because their housekeeper's son, who's schizophrenic, had thought that they had harmed, you know, and so he walked 7 miles with a gas can in his suitcase to torch the car, you know.
That's just determination.
That's really determination. And so, you know, they come home and they just, you know, tried to help him get help. So it's just, you know, but it's, you know, so that's what we want to see, is if we can come from that place, we're all in this could be me. You know, it happens to be this person, but this could be me. You know, how can I help? Not, how dare you harm me or harm my things, you know? And that, you know, that takes a certain, you know, it's that compassion, but it's also recognizing it's just a thing. You know, it's much harder to do if it's a person, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody takes a pickaxe, you know, to your person, that's a bigger challenge. But it can be done, because it's all about the mind, you know. So, but we don't volunteer to test it. This is not a test. You know, we don't have to go, well, let's see how evolved I really am. You know, don't do that. You know, that's not necessary. Enough stuff happens without effort. So we've already created the cause for the mess that we're in. So if we have these good conditions, we want to make use of them to work with our minds, because we won't always have these good conditions. So this is the time is now.
I like this lazy man's way to.
Yes, yes. And so that's one of the meditations I think I sent out, a meditation on rejoicing, where you just spend some time thinking about all the kind things that all the various living beings did today, all the teachers that were taking care of students, all the medical professionals, all the grandmas out there, you know, babysitting for the grandkids, you know. I mean, you can just think of countless, all the people who smile at other people, you know, all the people who don't honk their horn when somebody needs to cut in, you know. I'm not one of them. You know, all of these things, and just think how wonderful that is. There's so many acts that are positive all the time. You know. As His Holiness says, the reason why they're not on the news is they're ordinary, because they happen all the time. The news is about extraordinary events. So we want to rejoice in that. That's good news. And we're part of that. It's not separate from us. We created the cause to be in a world where there are all these acts of kindness. So that's something to really celebrate. Because we're not separate. I mean, this is the deal. We create the cause for everything we experience. So everything that we enjoy, every pretty day, every flower, every sunset, every sunrise, or not, depending on your attitude, that might not be something pleasurable to you. But everything every moment of pleasure is the result of a positive action. It has nothing to do with the object. It is the result of a positive action in the past. So we can rejoice about that. And that's true of everybody out there. Everybody who's experiencing a moment of pleasantness created the cause for that by doing something positive. So that's just tons of it. You know, gives me goosebumps. You know, that's really wonderful. And so we can just, you know, we can think about these things, and then we can think about the incredible things we hear about, you know, and go, wow, you know, I'm headed in that direction. Thank you for your story. Not often I have a pickaxe story. That's pretty cool.
I was impressed with her determination too.
Well, I mean, that's just, you know, that's a really vivid image.
It's
That's a
His
good.
delivery
Well,
too was
did I
great,
miss
because
when
he
I
took a
see-
pickaxe and everyone's
It,
the car.
She's an elderly lady. I
Yep.
mean, she's not.
The mind
but
doesn't,
wow, she really took out a car. I
Yep.
mean,
but this is the thing, what we need to
Impressive.
remember is when anybody is yelling at someone, being snarky, being blah, 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 they're out of control. That tsunami of habit energy has taken control. So we can have compassion and not take it personally.
Not too many people have a pickaxe laying around. So.
well, that was
We created the cause for that.
one of my other
I
neighbors.
know.
One of my,
South Florida?
well, like it's a mountain climbing pickaxe too.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Hey.
And so my neighbor Carol was like, "What is she doing climbing mountains?" No one knows.
What
The
do you
stuff people have in their
consider elderly?
garages. She's, you know, I don't know how old she is, but she looks frail. I mean, she walks
Well, she could swing
a
a
little
pickaxe.
hunched
Little did you know.
Yeah.
You know?
Looks are deceiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta watch out for the old
Criminals
quiet
don't look
little
like
ones.
criminals, do
Right?
they? You know,
Well,
so-
I don't think she's really.
No, I don't mean that. I
Yeah.
mean, but that's just the point. We
Yeah.
think that somebody who could, you know, would look a certain way, but we're wrong. Movies are lying to us. So,
Not all psychopaths are Michael Myers, right?
Yeah, not all villains have a British accent.
Yeah,
There's a car
in
in
fact,
the
but
way.
that's the trouble, you know, is that makes them sexy to so many women in the world, you know? It's like, ooh, a British accent. Or a French one. I can really fall for the French accent. Bam, I'm gone. It's pitiful.
Watch it too, pressure there.
Yeah,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
I really, really like French accents. I obviously created some karma there, you know, it's
Maybe
so
you lived in
weird.
France.
You know, I've been there 3 times, I really like it. So, okay. So we just want to try to use this information in a way that benefits us, not to freak out, not to sit there and think, oh my goodness, I'm like if you're upset, thinking, oh, I'm planting these seeds. You know, just breathe. You know, don't worry. You've already got billions of them already. You know, the key is learning how to interrupt it. You know, that every moment that we observe it is a step in the right direction. We go, oh, I'm out of control. That's the direction we want to go, is that knowing, that ability to have honest appraisal of what's going on in our mind. And slowly, slowly, if we're in that direction, you know, start looking at, well, this is not skillful of me. This is not going to lead me where I want to go. So maybe I'll try to refrain from this. And I'll start learning, you know, why, you know, it's no help at all. And then it won't arise so often. You know? So, there you go. All right, let's all rejoice that we all showed up, you know, to discuss this interesting, outrageous, you know, idea about how things work. Because that shatters our insistence that how things appear to us, it must be true. Because maybe it's not. So, yay. That's this really positive activity. So we want to rejoice in that, and we want to dedicate whatever merits, you know, whatever positive results we may have created the cause for, to not exhaust until there are no suffering sentient beings left whatsoever, so that it ripens to help everybody. All of us suffering beings. And rejoice in all the actions that you created that brought you to these teachings. You created the cause. So we're putting in the work. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Drive safely. Don't be contemplating, you know. Be mindful of the car, that it's a weapon of mass destruction.
Unless you you have a pickaxe?
Don't have a picture.
In the trunk. Yeah, I'm gonna start carrying one in the trunk. Man.
Puts the car in that.
That's good.